Hope you're well. Thank you for coming to watch. I don't know, this thing with my hands, I'm really sorry if you've noticed it in videos previously, but I just can't help it. It's always the way I've been, and even when I do public speaking, which I really, really hate, the thing that people always feedback is how much I move my hands, and I don't know if it's like a nervous thing or just how I keep myself at ease. It's just who I am, so I have my hands. Love me, love my hands. But yeah. Today I wanted to talk about triggers. Something I don't think I've spoken about before, and I wrote a post about it on my Instagram the other day. And triggers are interesting because they're different for everybody. Nobody has the same set of triggers. You will have triggers in common with people, but you will not have the same triggers, which is why we have to be very mindful and understanding of each other, if possible, and patient, because what bothers you might not bother somebody else, and what bothers somebody else might not bother you, and you might think, oh, that's nothing, and while they're kind of ranting and raving, or they're really upset, or they've had like a traumatic reaction to it. And so it's really important to ask questions and say, and be empathetic and say, well, why do you feel like this? Do you know where that might come from? And get them to think about it, instead of being very dismissive, because that happens a lot when it comes to triggers, or people go, oh, I'm like that as well, or I'm not bothered, and they kind of dismiss it in that way, which I really don't like, because if you're not bothered by it, then you're clearly not triggered, so don't use that. But to dismiss somebody's feelings. The other thing about triggers is that you only know your triggers as far as you've got in life. So I'm going to give you an example for myself. So I had the CBT about 6 years ago, and when I finished that therapy, I thought that all my trauma had been dealt with. It was, put in a box, put away now, I'm great, I'm good. No, life hadn't shown me everything that it had in store for me yet, and it's still, hopefully got many, many years to go. And things, subsequently happened, and I had, which triggered me, and I thought, wait, how am I triggered? I thought I was better. I thought I was all right. And suddenly I'm triggered again, and I just didn't understand that, and it made me really doubt myself. It made me really kind of beat myself up. When the truth is that triggers, like I said, you only know your triggers as far as you've experienced things, and you don't know what things are going to trigger you to sometimes you come across it. And for me, triggers are an indication that there's something that still needs healing. So for me, that was a bit of a like, oh my God, I've got to now figure this out. I've now got to make peace with this. I've now got to work through this issue to make peace with it, so I am not as triggered going forward. And it's a learning process. Some things you will always be triggered by, and you just have to learn to manage and self-care through those things. Some things you will be able to kind of put in your box and put behind you and never be triggered by it again. It just depends the severity of the trigger and how long it has been affecting your life without you really realizing till you kind of hit a wall, I guess. I'll give you a more useful example. So for me, if you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know what my childhood was like. And I used to always have issues with having a male boss, and a male kind of dominant figure in house, well, in house too, but around me. And so I remember I was in this job. It was a good job. It was in, financial services in the city in London. And I'd come across as quite confident in the interview, and they really liked me. And then once I got into the job, I just kind of like went into myself and just didn't replicate the behaviour that I had in my interview. And luckily for me, I had an amazing boss at the time who picked up on it and said, "What's going on? Who's this? Where's the girl we interviewed?" And it was a very male-dominated job. I think there was maybe one woman in the team, and I never really worked with her. And I became very intimidated by by having so many males around me, and specifically a male boss that would give me criticism, tell me what to do, that I had to kind of feed back to, and it just triggered me like mad, and it made me feel really out of my depth, and I just wasn't doing the role well because I had so much going on in my head all the time. But luckily for this boss, and like I said, it takes someone who has empathy, it takes someone who doesn't dismiss, and it takes someone intuitive to turn around and say, "What's going on there?" Because you're clearly the person that I interviewed, but something's changed. And he took me like for a coffee, and we just sat down and talked, and I opened up to him about my childhood, and that it's the issue around having a male boss that I'd never really noticed before, because my bosses before that have always been women, and even if they've been horrible to me, I've always been more comfortable with the fact that they're a woman, because women have always kept me safe as far as my mind was concerned. And so I didn't feel safe around all these men, and felt the one girl, and it just opened up a massive Pandora's box of things that I didn't realise were there. And sorry if I'm fidgeting, I fidget a lot as well. And we had a really good talk about that, and he really, really helped me. And knowing his understanding and his support made me better at my work in that job. Unfortunately, they had like a big organisation of the business, and I got moved, so I kind of had to go through that process again with a manager that didn't have that sort of empathy or that intuition or discernment to look into my reactions and the way that I was further. So it's really interesting, but that's how one of my triggers manifests. I would say that I'm better now. I won't say that that's all dealt with, because it's one of those things, when your trauma happens in your childhood. I've been an adult longer than I've been a child now. But, your childhood is your childhood. You don't have a chance to change anything at that point. It's when you get to adult life, if you've had that moment of self-awareness where you begin to change things, then things might happen quickly for you. However, if you have spent your adulthood reenacting some of your childhood traumas, or bringing in some of those unhealthy behaviours, you're just going to kind of essentially ruin your adult life. And so it takes a long time for it to click that things need to change, and you can't carry on that cycle. So for me, it's a work in progress, and I know that all males aren't dangerous or a threat or out to get me, but it is a work in progress. And I think, as with anyone, I think it just takes time to get to know them and to trust. And I will give you a chance from the outset. I won't kind of just I'm more open to seeing how you are before I decide you're a male and I'm going to react now. But that is something that I've had to learn over time. And so that's how one of my triggers have manifested and caused issues in my life. So there's other things as well, but we ain't got time to go through them. But the point is triggers are are a sign that there's something that still needs healing. So you need to do that, because otherwise you'll be on a hamster wheel, going round and round, repeating cycles, having no idea why you're acting the way that you're acting. You know, it's negatively affecting your life, and people don't understand you because you don't know, you haven't understood why you're acting that way either. And you need to take some time out to understand yourself. That's what you need to do. And people don't do this very often, because it's quite painful. It requires introspection. It requires taking some responsibility for your actions and not pointing outwards, which is easier to do. And so with triggers, you must look within. I mean, once you get to a certain age, you can, obviously you can, you know, for me, for example, I can say, you know, my stepdad was a horrible, violent man. However, now as an adult, he's no longer in my life, and now I have to take responsibility for how my triggers are affecting my life. I can no longer go, it's all his fault. The root of it is all his fault. However, I'm the one continuing the unhealthy behaviours. So it's now down to us. It's as they say, it all starts with you. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope that it will help you to figure out what your triggers might be and how you can work through them. If you'd like some more information, or you'd like to talk about triggers a little bit further, I will. I'm happy to. Just let me know specifically what those things are. And yeah, again, it all starts with you, and you can do this. You can have a better life. It just takes a little bit more self-awareness and a lot of self-work. And no one said it was going to be easy, but it's worth it. It really is. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. See you soon, and take care. Bye.